Hi, I'm Jill Martin. Right before Billy and I were married, we made a trip to the California School for the Deaf in Fremont. We spent the afternoon there, and we were overwhelmed by the love and the dedication we saw. So for the benefit of the hearing impaired, this video is also available in closed caption.
Hi, I'm Mickey Mantle. I've been asked by Cabin Fever to introduce this program. The first time I ever met Billy Martin was in 1951 at a rookie school in Phoenix, Arizona. I was playing shortstop and Billy was one of the instructors. Frank Crosetti was the Yankee infield coach and was telling us how to make double plays. Billy kept disagreeing. I'm thinking, who is this guy? But most of the time he was right, about covering second base anyway. Everyone has their own idea of what Billy was like. Most people think all he did was fight. Well, that's not true. Off the field, he was one of the best I've ever seen with kids. But when he put on that Yankee uniform, he became a different person, almost like a warrior. He taught me a lot about winning, and as far as I'm concerned, he was one of the best managers I've ever seen. Last summer, Billy was working on this program about managing. The interview you're about to see was the last one he ever made. The show was just about finished when he had his accident. I hope you all enjoy this show very much.
I never wanted to manage. It was never in my mind to manage. I thought I could play all my life, like all players do. I never had any aspirations of being a manager. I was playing under the greatest, and Casey Stengel, and I just listened to him and listened and watched how he managed each player, how he used every player just a little bit differently, how he used a little common sense, a little psychology, the different types of smarts that he had to motivate and teach at the same time. So with Casey there, I just remembered a lot of things he did. I remember a lot of things that a guy by the name of Charlie Dressen did, who I played under. And I remember a lot of things Cookie Lavagetto, Augie Gallan, Ernie Lombardi, people that I played with have taught me. And I put them all together, and there came out Billy Martin. And then I found out right off the bat, in order to be a successful manager, you can't be afraid to make a mistake. You got to be aggressive. You got to force the opposition to make physical and mental mistakes. And I wasn't afraid to do these things. I wasn't afraid to live and die in my own conviction. I wasn't going to be a fence rider and be one of many. I wanted to be, if I'm going to be a manager, I'm going to be a good one. And I made up my mind to go after the opposition and make them worry about what Billy Martin's going to do next.
Billy Martin. The man, the myth, the manager.
I thought at first he was second-guessing Casey, but when I thought about it later, Billy was just trying to learn as much about baseball as he could.
Being number one is really all that's important. I mean, really, when you get down to it, the Yankees being number one, and Billy was at times almost obsessed with that.
He seemed to know in the sixth inning that he was going to have to squeeze home a run in the ninth inning. You know, he just seemed to know what was going to happen.
He told me a few times that if I didn't straighten up, that he was going to take me to a room and rough me up a little bit.
He was always a fighter. His mother was more as a fighter than Billy Martin, and that's where he got it from.
I think one of the bigger mistakes I probably made was the last year he was managing for me, making the change.
Billy had such a force as a manager And very few managers had that impact on a game. Usually the impact comes from the players.
Billy taught me more about the game on the field than anybody I played for.
He didn't have to go to a rule book. He knew all the rules, A, B, C, no matter what.
But he handled us all differently, and we all wound up having our best years under him.
And after 20 years of playing baseball, you're a little resentful that somebody else can teach you something. But he can do it, and he did it. And he was great. He was just an unbelievable person.
Well, I was hanging around with Whitey Ford in '50 before Mickey came up. Whitey and I went to the Yankees in spring training at the same time, and then when they made the cut in '50 in spring training, they sent Whitey down to Kansas City. And then I was with the Yankees until June, and then they sent me down to Kansas City for a month.
The whole time he was there, he was like a different person. He was like a tiger in a cage. He couldn't wait to get back to Yankee Stadium. And I don't think, I can't remember, it's 40 years ago, but I don't think he was down here more than 2 or 3 weeks. But he screamed every day that he didn't belong in AAA. And so that's the next time I saw him. And then after he was called back, just a few weeks after that, the Yankees called me back, like July 1st of 1950. And then I got to see Billy quite a bit.
But Whitey and I pal around together. He was from Long Island. I was a city boy from Berkeley, California. So we got along real good. He was just great. And he knew his way around and everything. And he's a lot of fun to hang around with. Then the next year when Mickey came around, the three of us started palling around together. Well, the first time I saw Mickey Mantle was in Phoenix, Arizona. Mickey was one of the young players. And I would go up to batting practice, and here's this kid get up right-handed and hits the ball over the left field fence. And in the same batting practice, he turns over to the other side of the plate, gets up left-handed, and hits over to right field. So I said, ooh, what a show-off this guy is. So then he goes out, he's shortstop then. Picks up a ground ball, and he's throwing it over the first baseman's head about 20 feet. But Crosetti is hitting him grounders about 15 and hit him in the ear and the nose. And I mean, he had hands like a butcher. I mean, he looked like a bull in a china closet. So then when we started going to second base, and Crosetti's teaching the double play from the second base, I disagree with him because Cookie Lavagetto taught me it. I didn't disagree with Crow completely because Crow was a great teacher and I really respect him a lot, but I disagreed on this one little element of making a double play, and Mickey gave me a dirty look like, who's this kid trying to tell the great Crosetti how to make the double play? So we didn't hit it off too good. So then later on, we just hang around together, start talking, and we found out that we had our same likes, and we became friends. And
the three of us kind of hit it off right from the beginning, and we had 40 years later, we just lost Billy, but right up until Billy passed away, the three of us were as close as three guys could be.
The Copa Club incident was just the ending of Mr. Weiss is trying to get rid of me. That's all it really was. One year in 1957 in spring training, I had a good year in '56, I thought, coming out of the service. In '57 in spring training, I had a good spring, and Mr. Weiss calls me in his office. I said, what did I do wrong? He said, no, you didn't do anything wrong. He said, in fact, you had a good spring, you kept your nose clean, everything's fine. He said, but I just want you to let you know, you make one mistake and you're gone. And this is a wonderful way to go up north, and knowing that the Yankees owner sat right overlooking first base and second base, and I got to look up, and there he is looking at me all the time, knowing he don't like me. So it come May the 16th, which is my birthday, and Whitey Ford, Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra, Hank Bauer, Moose Skowron, Andy Carey, and a couple other guys decided they want to have a birthday, but it's a day off. I want to have a birthday party. We got the day off that day and 2 days in a row off.
Well, this thing started in the Copacabana. There was a bowling team sitting a few tables from us, and they were getting on. Sammy Davis was up entertaining, and we were really enjoying Sammy. And this bowling team was getting on them, and they had some women with them too. And Hank Bauer, one of the guys, asked them to just, in a nice way, just quiet down. And they kept getting on Sammy Davis, and he was getting, it looked like he was getting a little irritated.
Bauer and this one guy got into it, one of the brothers, and one of the other brothers came over and said, Billy, can I talk to you? So we go out outside the hallway, and he's telling me, he said, I can handle my brother if you can handle Hank. So I say, no problem. So by the time we go back out there, somebody hit this guy. It wasn't Hank, but somebody hit this guy already, and I kind of think it was one of the bouncers that put him away. And next day, with big headlines, Yankees getting Copacabana fight. And day after that, we go to the ballpark, and I start packing all my clothes, and Mantle said, "What's wrong with you? You didn't do anything. You weren't even in the room when it happened." I says, "The man told me one thing happens, I'm gone." So I packed my clothes, and exactly a month from there, I was traded to Kansas City.
The first night in Kansas City, Billy had an apartment by then, and we went over to his apartment, and Mickey and I stayed up all night with him, talking. Billy'd be crying a little, and then he'd make us cry a little, just talking about old stories. And we sat up drinking all night, and the next thing I knew the sun was coming up, and thank goodness we had a night game that night, but we stayed up all night telling stories. And then, sure enough, I had to pitch against Billy that night, and we got a big lead. I think we were leading like 8-0 or something in the late innings, and Billy got up to hit, and there was nobody on base, and I think the count was, I don't know, 1-1 or something, and I threw a big slow curve, and Billy just took it for strike 2. So as I'm taking the sign from Yogi, the next pitch, I sort of hollered it. I didn't want anybody to hear it except Billy. I said, "Same thing," meaning I was going to throw the same pitch again, a slow curve. And I did, and Billy hit a home run off of me. And I didn't know it, but Casey heard it from the dugout. He heard me say something. Casey was quite perturbed. I don't know whether he didn't want Billy to look good against us because we traded him to Kansas City or what, but Billy and I talked about that for many, many years later.
Casey was in the middle, and it was tough for him. He was taking a stand for me, and Weiss just told him, "I'm the boss, and this is the way it's going to be." And when we went to Kansas City, takes me up to the office, and he says, "Well, young man," I said, "I got to do something I didn't want to do." He said, "I'm trading you to Kansas City." He says, "I got Mr. Johnson, who owned the ball club at the time, coming over here. I'm going to brag into him up what type of player, how great you are." And I said, "I don't want you to say nothing." He says, "What?" I said, "I don't want you to say nothing. I want you to brag at me." And Mr. Johnson came in, and just then I said, "Mr. Johnson, I'll play for you as hard as I can. I don't want this man to say nothing." I just walked away. I was really hurt. Well, I didn't talk to Casey for 7 years after that. And Mantle keep telling me, "Boy, you better talk to the old man. He keeps asking about you." And sincerely, you know, he's such a great man. I said to myself, "Gee, wouldn't it be terrible if he died and I never got a chance to..." So I waited, and now I'm working for the Minnesota Twins as I was a major league scout, and we're Houston, Texas for a winter meeting, and Casey's sitting over there talking to a couple of guys, and I walk up to Casey, and I figured I had to do it, you know. I go up and I said, "Casey, how are you?" He stuck out his hand like nothing ever happened. He says, "Billy, how are you? Boy, it's good to see you. Let me tell you about this player," and then started bragging on me. And just like it was never happened, that's how great of a man he was. I was very fortunate, and I told him so, that too many guys don't do it in any business, never mind baseball, would like to go up to their boss and say, "Thank you, boss." And I thanked him, and I'm glad I did before he passed away. Smartest thing I ever did my whole life, believe me. Oh, I think when the Yankees traded me, that it really was a downfall of my career. There's no question about it. The hurt was so deep that I wasn't the player that I should have been. It was very hard for me to generate feeling and the things that had to be that made me a player. It wasn't my overall ability. It's my aggressiveness and my desire and my pride. My self-sacrifice was what's made me a better ball player than most of them out there. But I wasn't the same player, and Mickey Mantle was the first one to see that. So you're not the same player, and it's true. I went from there, Kansas City that summer, then Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, short period of time, and then Minnesota, and that was the end. And I think I was through at a very young age, and I think I was through for a couple of reasons. Number one, that I wasn't pushing myself hard enough. I was probably still sulking, still pouting, whatever you want to call it, still hurt. I was deeply hurt. And it was a tough thing to accept. And a lot of people don't realize that when I first went to the Yankees, I just turned 21. And here at the age of 31, I'm all through. I got tougher as it went on. After I got released, and I became a tougher individual. I got back to me again. Got back to being aggressive again. Because I was hungry again. And you have to be hungry to be aggressive. And I wasn't hungry then. I was going through a lot of tough times at that time. I was going through a divorce. My wife, my child, I lost my child through the divorce. A lot of things are going through that sometimes a young man it's hard to cope, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. 1961, my last year as a player, I went in spring training in '62, but I was released by the Minnesota Twins, and Calvin Griffith took it on his own to hire me as a major league scout. I scouted for him for a couple of years at the major league level, and then they made me a supervisor of Midwest Scouts for the Minnesota Twins, and then in 1965, they made me their third base coach under Sam Mealy. We won the pennant that year in '65. Sam Mealy let me have my free hand at third base coaching, and he was just a tremendous man to work for. I really appreciate him and still do. '66 and '67, I was the third base coach for the Minnesota Twins. In '68, a group of people came from Denver on a plane, the general manager and a group of fans, and they asked Calvin Griffith if I would be their manager. So I asked Calvin, I said, Calvin, I'll take it. And Calvin says, well, we don't have much of a team down there, Billy. I said, what's their record? And he says, 7 wins and 22 losses. I said, well, we got any pitching? He says, no. I said, we got any hitting? He says, no. Any defense? He says, no. Well, I said, okay, this is a challenge. Well, when I went there to the Denver team, they said there wasn't any good players there, but that's untrue, there was. So they had a third baseman by the name of Nettles, who was outstanding.
You know, when he first got there, he was yelling and screaming in the way he does, and right away I got a bad impression of Billy. I didn't like him at all at the first couple of weeks he was there, but he turned the team around so much, and we turned into a winning team right away. It just, you know, it started to grow on you, and I could see basically the method to his madness, you know, what he was trying to accomplish, and he was doing it. He was teaching us how to play winning baseball, and after about 3 or 4 weeks down there in Denver, I really got to like the guy an awful lot. And so I just, you know, I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Billy because he taught me how to win and how to be a good ball player.
But these were a bunch of guys who were just going their own way, and they needed direction, and that was my job. And one day I benched 5 of them, all college graduates, and they wanted to know why I benched them. And I said, well, it's very simple. I said, you're all intelligent young men, but you play dumb out there. And you're not using the brains that the good Lord gave you in baseball. So I'm going to make you baseball smart, and you're going to listen to a dummy who never went to college, and you're going to learn how to play baseball. And Nettles was one of them, was sitting on the bench. So after about 2 innings, he said, Skip, is there any chance of me getting out there? I'm getting tired of listening to this. So I knew he got the message. I was getting across to do a little thinking out there in the field, use a little common sense. And they started doing that, and then we started beating everybody, and I mean, then it was fun. And we turned the record. When it was all over, we won 65 and only lost 50. But then Calvin Griffith accepted that and liked it enough to hire me next year as their manager. That was my start.
In the '69 Twins, we had about 7 or 8 rookies on the club to open the season, and most of us were from Denver that played with Billy the year before. Billy always liked to give a no-name or a long shot a chance. Every spring he would take somebody that played A-ball the year before, and they made the team, just to give somebody a chance like that. And you know, it was a veteran team, and he stepped on a lot of toes by bringing a lot of rookies up that year.
When we went to spring training, we knew that it was going to be different because we didn't have guys that could run. But then he started experimenting. You know, you had Killebrew stealing bases, Allison stealing bases. I mean, just everybody.
You know, it proved to be the right thing because we won the division that year. After opening the season, I think we lost the first 4 or 5 games of the season that year in '69, and we ended up coming on to win the division by 7 or 8 games.
he did a lot of things to create excitement. You know, he didn't wait for something to happen. He made something happen. You know, he was trying to make things happen that would allow the other ball club to make mistakes.
You had to consider going against his club as if he was a player on the field, because he was so active and so involved. And that was a tremendous challenge, not just for the manager, but for all our coaches, because Billy was involved in everything. You know, his defense was doing things, his offense was doing things, his pitchers were doing things. So we were all having to be, I think it really helped you be as good as you could be, because you knew that if you were not at the top of your game, you were going to be embarrassed. And many times you were going to be doing the best that you could, and he would find a way to embarrass you because he was ahead of you, and he would paint you into a corner. So I think that kind of challenge, it's just like playing tennis with somebody that's better than you. You know, you may get beat, but you'll raise your game just because you're forced yourself to a higher level. But there was a nonstop pressure of managing against him, because he managed 9 innings, all facets. So his defense was, as I said, was doing something. His offense was doing something. You were wondering how he was going to use his pitching. Tremendous amount of pressure, tremendous amount of mental fatigue, but I thought tremendously exciting, and nobody, I mean, very, very few, I think, in the history of baseball have been as important to a game managing as Billy Martin was. And I'm talking about, you know, his disagreements with the umpires. I think were just an aside. I never even counted those things. I think the credit that I give Billy is for what he did with his club against the other club.
Oh, Billy's strength was his knowledge of all parts of the game, and also the personnel of the other teams, what he had to do to beat you, and also the weaknesses and the strengths of the other managers. I know he respected Earl Weaver. There's some guys he respected, some guys he wanted to beat. He respected Sparky, but he loved to beat him. And he was a perfectionist on the field. He was a perfectionist in baseball. And there's a lot of managers that can take losses, whether they tell you that or not. Billy couldn't take a loss. He couldn't take it.
You have to manage according to personnel. You can't have a mule and say you're going to go to Kentucky Derby. You know? You got guys that can't run, you don't run. So you play what? Suicide squeeze, hit and run. You got to know when to hit and run. You got to know who to hit and run with, who can make contact with the ball. You got to know if the pitcher's wild out there. You can't put a hit and run with a wild pitcher. If it's a bunt situation, you got a guy that can't bunt up there. You can't put the bunt on. Although people say, why isn't he bunting? A guy can't bunt, so why put the bunt on and get a pop up and make an out? So you got to switch. Although your fans in the stands, the managers in the stands think you're wrong for doing it, you got a reason for doing it. There's always a reason for doing it. You should take a guy that hits in a double play and you got speed on the base to keep out of the double play. You send the runner, instead of hitting and running, you call running and hitting. The guy's running, and all he has to do now is make contact. Don't take the bat out of his hand. Ball's inside, pull it. If it's away, go the opposite way. When you make up your lineup, that's how you make your lineup. You make your lineup with guys who can run. You don't want to put a bunch of slow ones together. You want to put a bunch of strikeout artists together. I had one owner wanted me to bat Reggie Jackson fourth all the time. I didn't want to bat Reggie Jackson fourth because he wasn't a contact hitter. I didn't want to have a rally stopper there, so I moved him down fifth or another spot. And not that Reggie couldn't hit a home run or not that Reggie couldn't get a base hit, but consistently, and this is a game of percentages. You got to play the percentages. If a guy's up there 10 times and he's going to strike out 5 times, that's going to kill a rally. If a guy's up there 10 times and you're going to get a hit 3 out of the 10 times and get a couple of walks or makes contact, now you got that. And that's why I batted Chris Chambliss fourth in 76 and got a lot of heat all year long about it. And then until he hit the famous home run, then you didn't hear the heat. I once broke it down talking about Ted Williams. They talk about what a great player was. He wasn't a great player. He was one of the greatest hitters that ever played game. Mediocre left fielder, lousy base runner, never knocked a guy down at second base. There were so many things he didn't do. He had the same uniform for 2 years. I don't think he ever washed it because he didn't slide, didn't do all those things. You know, I mean, what the heck? I loved him as a person. I liked the man. I mean, I really did. I liked the way he was aggressive at the plate. He was one of the greatest hitters of all time in baseball, without a doubt. But the other things, Ted Williams, he could play with me with his bat. But I'd take a defense, I'd defense him whether he got mad or not. I'd put a pinch runner in for him when I needed to score a run, because he just didn't do those things. Ted wasn't a worker at those things. Just so many little things in baseball that we try to teach. And I found out that it's the little things that win you more ball games than the big things. The executions, making less physical mistakes, less mental mistakes, working together as a team, as a unit, and be proud of the letters across your chest, whatever they say, and work at it hard, and work in it where you just don't turn it off like you turn a light off when you even go home after you've lost. Losing is a very tough pill to swallow. I've never been able to swallow it. I think what you do is you see the players, what they've got in them. Like, for instance, I'll give you, when I'm managing the Yankees one time, we had an outfielder by the name of Kemp, and I benched him for a player by the name of Mattingly, and the press was all over me. How could I do such a thing after the Yankees had spent so much money? And I even got criticized by the owner for doing it. And I said, we've got a great hitter here, and I think he's a much better player than the other guy. And we can't see that, Billy. And then I ran into a lot of heat over that. Well, it's happened in other towns too with different players. With Minnesota, Rod Carew. I went to Sam Mealy. I said, Sam, we got a second baseman, and I got some heat from the organization. No, I can't play second base. He's not that good a player.
There were people higher up in the organization that didn't want me to stay in the major leagues because I had only spent, like I think 2.5 years in the minor leagues, and they felt that that was too soon for me to be in the big leagues. And Billy knew that they needed a second baseman, and he felt that if I could hit above 250, that he would work with me and make me into a decent second baseman that wouldn't hurt the club. And so it was like his job to transform me from a iron hands kid into a smooth-handed feeling second baseman. So he spent a lot of time with me. And we became very close, and here's a guy that did so much for me, and I wanted to show him what I felt about him, my respect, my love for him. So he became Stephanie's godfather.
It's always been that I had to prove that the guy could do it, and that's the part that bugs you a little bit. In different cities where I was the general manager and manager, I didn't run into that problem. Texas, if I was not in Texas, I could have never brought Hargrove and Sundberg up, because they would have told me, oh, you don't bring guys up from Class A to Major Leagues. It's a no-no, Billy, But you do if they're mentally ready, and that's the most important thing, mentally ready. They got the physical ability, because you see that everybody can see that out in the field. But you know that these two guys can handle it. So I brought them up, and they did handle it very well.
At that point in time, the Texas Rangers were new. Old Washington Senators, new Texas Rangers, and he put a lot of pressure on the young guys to play that way. And one day you were the greatest thing since bubblegum, the next day you were the biggest turd that walked on the earth. So you had to learn how to handle that mentally, and once you got past that point and just listened to his baseball knowledge, that he was good to play for.
We have some great baseball scouts. And being a scout myself, you have a little different eye than most people have. And you can see something in the person. Like, for instance, when you look at a player out there, you can see his arms, his built, his power, his speed, his different many aspects. But you can't read his hair, and you can't read in his heart, and you can't read in his stomach. There's some guys that don't have the ability, speed, strength, but they have more guts and a lot of heart. For where they lack an ability, they want to win so bad that you lean a little bit backwards for a guy like that. There have been so many players that were just borderline that could play for me more than a superstar could, because those guys really wanted to give and put out all the time. We had a pitcher by the name of John Hiller that was in spring training, not with us, but was just down there, and he's throwing on the sidelines. So Art Fowler says, come on, take a look at this Hiller throw the ball. And I just couldn't believe the velocity he had and the breaking ball and everything else. So I went up to Jim Campbell, the general manager, and I said, what's wrong with Hiller? Why can't we put him on the spring training? I said, oh, Billy, he says, he had a heart attack last year. I said, what's that got to do with it? I said, you know, I've been told that people that have attacks or whatever it may be, the best thing for them is work and do the things that they love best. So he said, well, I don't know, Billy, I don't think that's right. I said, well, would you do me a favor? Would you call a doctor and talk to the doctor and let the doctor tell us? Okay, I want to hear from the doctor. So he called the doctor, and the doctor says, yeah, it'd be better for him to pitch. He became the best relief pitcher in baseball. And I mean, to tell you, you talk about a man with courage. He had courage, and I was very proud of John. He did a great job for us. Well, Ron Guidry is a real easy thing to talk about. He's the guy, when I first got him, same old thing. You sit up there, and these geniuses in the front office, not all front office, but a lot of them, look and say, well, this is a 5-inning pitcher. Don't pitch him over 5 innings because he can't last. He's too small. It's going to hurt his arm and all that. And so after talking to Ron and finding out what a competitor he is and kind of a person he is, and seeing how he throws the ball with the easy motion, his arm, and how he uses his whole body when he throws the ball instead of just his arm, you know that what they were talking about, they didn't know what they were talking about. And he's out there, and we got a 3-run lead going in the 9th inning. And I said, well, now this will prove a point that Gid can do it. And I'll be darned if he don't get the bases loaded and 1 out. And they already scored 2 runs. And he looked, and I walked out to the mound. I said, I've been trying to convince everybody now that you can finish, that you are a starter. You are going to finish this ball game, pal. I may get criticized for it, but I have enough belief in you. And certainly you have enough in yourself. So I walked back to the dugout, and he struck out the next 2 guys. What defines being a Yankee? Well, like, our country has a great heritage. So does the Yankees. Look at how many pennants and World Series they've won. Look at the dynasty they built up. Vince Lombardi one time, I invited me over his house, and when he was coaching Green Bay, and I said, Vince, where'd you ever learn how to put Yankeeism into football? And he looked at me, he says, how'd you know that? I says, you're the first football coach I ever seen install pride, desire, will to win, self-sacrifice, which the Yankees have always had. You put it into football. He said, well, Billy, I was from the Bronx. He started telling me, and you know, I honestly believe he got it from the Yankees. I honestly believe he learned that from the Yankees. And I admired that man so much. I thought he was so great. I used to always think it was a uniform, the pinstripes. It's not the pinstripes. It's the people in the pinstripes that make the pinstripes. It's the Garricks, it's the Ruths, it's the Crusettis, it's the Dickies, it's the Bears, it's the Rizzutos, it's all those guys. It's the Manos, DiMaggio. How many more can you say? The Roger Maris, one of the sweetest Yankee of them all, one of the greatest Yankee of all. There's just so many great ones out there, Scourins, that all in their own right, Joe Collins, all in their own right did their job. That made the Yankees a team. Small, little part of a big vehicle, but the part that made the whole vehicle go at one time or another. Being a Yankee was the ultimate blue stock. General Motors, General Steel, whatever you want to call it at one time or another. You know? I'd rather be a Yankee, be the President of the United States.
Billy was the heart and spirit of the Yankees as far as I was concerned. He epitomized what I wanted to put in to the Yankees, that fiery brand of baseball to captivate New York. You know, we hadn't done much for years when I bought them in '73. They hadn't won, I don't know how many years, have been close. I needed that fire built under them and in them. And so I made up my mind to go for Billy.
When we got back into the stadium in '76 and Billy's first full year as a manager, that's when we started winning.
He was a motivator of ball players, although he was with a team in 1976 that was compiled of a lot of veterans who at one time almost rebelled because of things that Billy wanted done, but finally he convinced us to do them for about a month.
It's kind of like what would have happened at Denver, but I mean, everybody was kind of scared at Denver and didn't want to say anything. But here Billy was taking over a bunch of major leaguers, and a lot of them, you know, decided to say something. They didn't want to just go along with the program just to be going along with it like we did in Denver. But then, you know, after a while, the guys could see that Billy's, you know, he had a reputation of turning teams into a winner. He had done it in Denver, he did it in Minnesota, he did it in Detroit and Texas. So I think the guys decided to sit back and let this guy's record speak for itself and let him do the job, and that's what happened. That's why we started winning.
He would always surprise the opposition, and if you weren't on your toes, he could always steal a ball game. And we always felt good about that he was able to do a little bit extra, not just sit there and just root the guys on and say, come on guys, bail me out and hit a home run so we can go home. He would do something about that, and I think the players felt good about the fact that Billy was kind of like an ace in the hole who can always get us over the hump if we needed just that one run. And it could have been the bottom of the ninth and we needed to just get one run and go home. He was always a step ahead seemingly of the other manager, and he would always find a way to beat you. And a lot of managers don't have that quality, I don't think. People always talked about, the fact that he's been fired 3 or 4 or 5 different times. That really didn't matter to me. I didn't care about that. I just knew that when Billy was coming back, I knew he was going to be at the helm, we had a chance to get the most out of our ability, and we were going to win. So his qualities, he has many qualities as a manager, but I think one of his biggest qualities was being able to lead the team and get the most out of what he had. It made you believe that you were part of the Yankees, that you were his team.
He worshiped the Yankees. They were his life, and I just felt that he had been the most valuable player in the World Series. He'd been a fine, great competitor for the Yankees. He'd been one of the best managers they ever had, and he loved them. So that to me, having your number retired and being put in center field is not a question of what your batting average was or how many home runs you hit. There's too much of that. I want to know Billy was heart and soul a Yankee, and he deserved to be out there. And it's that simple. I don't care what writers think. Some guys don't like it, tough. Let them go buy a baseball team. They can put who they want in their outfield.
We would like to give you this little memento so you can wear it with pride, because in our hearts you were number one while you were here, and you will always remain number one.
When I first went to Oakland, again, I ran into the manager the year before it. He lived down there in Scottsdale. He's trying to tell me about his ball club, and I looked at my pitching coach, Art, and I said, he's telling me about his ball club, and he lost 108 games last year? And I felt like, hey, come on, let's give it a rest, pal, So he's telling me he didn't have this, didn't have that, and everything. So I was allowed to pick my staff, and then I started down there, and I had a meeting with him first day in the clubhouse with all the players. Ricky Henderson, all of them I had there, all the kids, Tony Armas, all of them. So I said, now look, we know you lost 108 games last year. We're going to show you how to win. We are going to win this year. I said, you guys just keep that in mind. We're going to try a lot of things. We're going to steal home. We're going to hit and run. Some of you guys never stole home before in your life. You're going to steal home. We're going to do it down here in spring training. We're going to get the other teams mad at us because we're going to play every game like it's a one-run ball game. And we're going to be very aggressive. You're going to make mistakes. All of you are going to make mistakes. But when you do, I'll take the blame. Don't make the same mental mistake twice. The physical part, you're human, that's going to happen. But if you make a mental mistake prior to the physical one, then I'm going to jump you. I'll jump you in private. My coaches will jump you. I'll jump my coaches. I said, but we are going to win. So we tried every play possible in the first 4 games we played. Everything failed. Everything backfired. We tried one play one day, and it worked. There was a scream on the bench, you think we won the pennant. Well, we almost did, because from then on in, we're unbeatable.
No one dared laugh or snicker in front of Billy, but I don't think anyone took him that serious. It's something that, of course, we're all the best. Every club that comes out of spring training is the best baseball team, and of course, all that gets separated during the course of the year. So when he tells you that in the beginning, I don't think anyone completely believed it. But suddenly we started winning games by doing the little things in baseball, and suddenly our confidence grew and our abilities, and we finally learned about ourselves. And he was able to bring the whole club together and react the way he reacts, and that's to be aggressive and to play hard and to never quit.
How can we say? I don't think he was tough on me. I think he saw the toughness in me than to be tough on me. He mainly just say, you go play, you do your thing. When you do something wrong, I'll correct you. And based on I was so aggressive and wanted to do so well, I guess I think he just saw that in me. Instead of being tough on me, he's willing to help me because I had so much aggressive inside.
And for the first year, for us to wind up in second place was like, it was like winning it. because they had been so bad out there the year before. But he took those young kids and taught everybody how to play, and taught Murphy how to play center field, and Murphy was in control of Armas and Henderson, and they listened to him. And the kids now are on a roll, and now they listen to him more. See, they just now, whatever he says, it'll work. And I remember stealing home so many times. We got Jack Morris in Detroit twice in a row, and we couldn't hit Jack Morris. It was like a big leaguer pitching against little leaguers at the time.
Oh, he showed the whole team about stealing home. That was probably the first time I knew about stealing home plates. Didn't even know what stealing home was all about. I didn't think you should steal home, or was it legal to steal home. So Billy Martin, he took us all out, and he taught us how to get a jump to steal home, how to time a pitcher. Really, it was just like clockwork, you know, on what he was saying. If you really studied what he was talking about and the timing and setting up a pitcher, it was just like clockwork. It worked every time.
Our pitching staff came through. We had no bullpen, and it was very simple. I went out to the mound and spring training, and I said, don't look over your shoulder. We have nobody in the bullpen. I said, don't even look over there. I said, you're the pitcher. You're going to live and die out there, because we have nothing in the bullpen that's really capable of coming out here and stopping people. So what they did was they did a job for me. I had one pitcher that Langford, he averaged 78 pitches a game. And that's, some pitchers go out there and throw 140, 150.
Yeah, that question was asked many times over the years, because all of us went down with injuries, but my particular opinion of that was no. We did not pitch too much. We didn't pitch any more then than players used to pitch. It's just the years of playing ball. I played 15 years of professional baseball, 10 of it in the major leagues, and it just takes its toll after a certain amount of time. There are many times you're hit with pitches or you're stepped on, or things that cause injuries that can happen later. I felt very good. I was young, I was strong, I was in my rhythm, my pitching rhythm. I was at my peak, and I would certainly love to do it all over again. I wouldn't change a thing.
Billy took young kids and made them win, forced them to win, scared them to win, say, and gave them pride in themselves and playing. And yet he could take the older ball club and do the same thing with them. So he had a lot of ability to handle people. I sometimes wonder why people say he got burnt out. I think he's a perfectionist, and when he reached one certain area, then he would want to go on. He could put an organization together like he did in Oakland. He took the whole ball club out there from Findlay, ran the whole organization, and put together a winning organization. And I wouldn't give Billy all the credit for Oakland today, but Billy deserves a lot of it.
Well, I wear the World Series ring as a manager. I got many rings as a player. Yeah, because as a player, it just was me out there. As a manager, it was me running the whole motor. And you're the pitching coach, you're the batting instructor, you're everything in the World Series. I mean, you got those guys there, but when it comes to who makes the decision, it's you. You're the one who presses that little red button when they hit and run. They say manager only wins so many games. I don't buy that. I mean, you know when to put the pinch hitter in, you know when the defense. I'll give you, for instance, if I may, which a lot of people don't realize, you go to the ballpark, say 2:30 in the afternoon. The players don't get there till 5:30, the night game. Coaches get there about 4. In the meantime, I've got a report on my desk of the advance report by the scouts that we send out that follow the team prior to they come in to play the Yankees. And on this report, it tells how to pitch and play, what certain guy will suicide squeeze, what count they steal on, what count do they hit and run on, who are the guys that hit and run, who are the fast guys in their ball club, who tries to delayed steal, what different tricks the different managers will do, what pattern this manager coaches under. He runs scared, afraid to be aggressive. So you know this before you go into that series with a certain manager, and then I'll bring my coaches in and go over the report with them, hand a copy to each one of them. One will have it in the bullpen coach will have it, one will have it on the bench, and the other ones will take it, and then I'll assign them. The outfield coach with the outfielders go over how to play these guys, the infield coach how to defense against them. And then before the game starts, right after batting practice, I'll bring in the pitching coach the bullpen, the starting pitcher, shortstop, second baseman, center fielder, and catchers, and go over how we're going to pitch and play them, and privately in my office. And then we go over exactly, and I memorize all those things before the game starts, so sometimes I have to, for the new team or a couple of new players, I'll have to revert back to the paper to see who these new players are. Other than that, I can memorize it, and that's the part that gets me mad in the ball game, when a player who just sat in the meeting 10 minutes ago forgot a certain thing, and that bothers me a lot.
If a player messed up, to get on the player, he would get on me on the bench and say it loud enough where everybody could hear it. See, it was our fault. It wasn't really, but that was Billy's way. He got on the two catchers. He never got on the 11 pitchers. He got on the two catchers. He would get on Art Fowler, sometimes unmercifully, to get to that pitcher, see? And that's how he taught. And the players would think that he's getting on the pitching coach or getting on me. Sometimes we took it personal, but that wasn't really Billy. After the game was over, it was over, and he got his point across. He got his message across.
I believe that your coaches are very important, every one of them. I had a pitching coach by the name of Art Fowler, who a lot of people never gave him enough credit for what he did. What is a pitching coach? Is he a guru? Is he a genius? What does a pitching coach really do? To me, a pitching coach is a bumper between the manager and the player. If you got 24 players and you got 10 pitchers, that's an awful big part of your team. So you got to have a pitching coach who is going to talk truth to the pitchers when they make a mistake. No, it wasn't his fault because you hadn't pitched in 2 days. It was your fault because you didn't get the ball over the plate. No, it wasn't the shortstop's fault. It was your fault because you made the wrong pitch. And get the pitchers to be honest. Get them to work hard. Get them to run. Let them quit the alibis and excuses. Go out there, be aggressive. Then when the pitcher does good, just brag on him as high as you can. And Art Fowler was a plus at that. I was the policeman and the guy that had to be the bad guy. I'd go out to the mound. I knew how to butter up, knew how to chew out, and knew how to, the person I had to really ream would be certain pitchers that just couldn't force themselves to be aggressive, and I had to get them so mad at me that they're going, I'll show that Billy. Like, I'll give you, for instance, Joe Coleman. He was just a mediocre pitcher, Washington. I'd walk out to the mound, he wanted to throw screwballs and wanted to throw all kind of junk pitches. I said, you're going to throw your fastball, and I got our catcher, Bill Free, and I said, he will throw the fastball on the mound. He'd go home that night. My coach, Charlie Severi, used to ride home with him, telling Charlie how he hated me. He'd strike out 12, 13 guys, win 20 games, and I love that kind of hate. Your first base coach has got to be a person who doesn't take anything for granted, keeps reminding them, letting them know that the outfielders are not playing deep enough, or they're playing too shallow, or you can't go to third base on a line drive. Just remind them the little things. Tell them the outs, tell them to tag up on a long fly ball, just the little things, the basic fundamental, but he's got to keep reminding, and when he stops doing it, then he's not doing his job. Go up to a guy who can't get a sign, learn the signs from the third base coach and say, you're stealing. Break it down. I've had 3 sets of signs, one for the smart guys, one for the guys that can barely get them, and one for the dummies. And when you got a dummy, you got to tell them, hey, dummy, signs, you're stealing. You're just hitting runs on. You just got to break it down. They don't admit that they're that type of person. They're always giving an excuse, oh, they didn't get it, or they missed it, or whatever it may be. So you eliminate that by having the coach saying, you're going, all right? No last name, first name, middle name, or if I say the word TJ or whatever it may be, you just say, you're running. Very simple. And first base coach, that's his job. To make him get proper leads, and just reminder. Third base coach, now he's a breed altogether. He is a person who is the manager's right-hand man. He's got to know when to pick up my signs. He's got to know his runners. He's got to know his outfielders. He's got to know the outfielders' arms. Well, he's got to know the score, when to send the guy in, when to hold him up, when to take the chance, when not to. Know how slow his runners are, how hard the ball was hit. He's got to be really a magician out there. I had one third base coach. He's a manager now in the National League. He missed more signs than the players. But comes in and says, I missed a sign. That doesn't help you a bit. Just costs you a ball game. You can't miss that many signs. And there's no reason for to miss signs when they're that simple. And you make your signs as simple. so you don't take away from the ability of the player. You break him down. And if your third base coach is good, he'll know. And I have third base coach who gives all kinds of 9 million signs, and he messes the guy up. And I said, well, the guy that can't get a sign, walk up to home plate. You're hitting. You're not hitting. And if he lifts his head up, take the doubt out of his head. Just break it down simple and let the guy's ability show without worrying about that he's going to make a mistake. And I had one third base coach, Clete Boer. He was one of the best I've ever had, and he was very good at this. It's a tough job being a third base coach. I was one, so I can tell you it's a tough job. Well, let me tell you the hard part about managing is, and not the easy part is on the field. The easy part really is dealing with the players. The easy part is managing against other oppositions. That part's easy. The hard part, talking to the press before the game, not the good press. The guy with a card that says he's press, and he should be pressed and closed. The press after the game, who ask you crazy and ridiculous questions just to rile you up, to get you mad, to give an answer so they can say Martin was mad and use some weak excuse. The press trying to get the player against the manager, manager against the player, manager against the owner to make comments against his manager and his players, to leak stories out to the press about the manager and the players, to have an agent call and complain to the owner who, after he signed the player for 5 years, to complain why his player isn't getting treated a little nicer than the rest of them. The incentive clauses, if this guy's got so many at-bats, the manager don't play him. One day I had to play 5 guys so they reach their bonuses. Now, that's not managing when you have to worry about some guy's salary. I believe they should give them a set contract. Once they sign it, they're part of you. They should never come back again during the season, give me a raise, or have an agent call and give the owner a bad time. The owner listens to the agent. Shame on the owner, because he's not helping the ball club. And any owner who leaks out stories is not helping his ball club or his players at all. He's hurting the team, and there's no way any owner should do that. I don't care who the owner is, and I'm against it 100%, always have been. The game is won and lost down there in the field between the manager and the players and his coaches down there. That's where it's won and lost. There should be no outside interference. In the old days, there wasn't. Nowadays, there's too much. When you're a manager, you're going to get so many in the club like you, and there's going to be so many just like you, and there's going to be so many undecided, and there's going to be some that are not playing or out and out going to hate you. Or there might be a personality clash, a generation clash, whatever there might be. I don't know. There's all kind of things, alibis that they want to look at where it's not their fault, it's the manager's fault where they're not playing. And you know, all managers, believe me, I honestly think this. If I was a manager today and I had to pitch Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, and Hirohito, and they could pitch, I forget about what bad people they were, they'd still be out there pitching. And I never let personalities or what type of people they are enter into it. And I've always felt that way, and that's the way I've always managed. There's some guys I've had in my ball club that I honestly didn't like, and I would never tell anybody that, but that goes with the job. As a player, you worry about your at-bats, your feeling, being on the ball club, making the cut, staying with the team. And then when you become a manager, now you worry about 24 players. You worry about attendance. You worry about the position your ball club's going to show. You worry about the front office. You worry about the media. You got so many other problems. You're a father. You're a brother. You're a babysitter. You have a tendency to have to deviate to the press to protect a player. You're so many things that you never thought you had to be before, because when you played, you didn't realize what the manager went through. You never knew that side of the story. You take a player now and you make him a coach for 1 year after he's played, and he can't believe the other side of the story. Players don't talk to you anymore because they feel your front office. You're a loner. You don't hang around with anybody. And if you're a manager, it's worse so, because coaches don't want to be around you too much because they don't want to listen to you give them heck about what they did wrong the day before. So then when I became manager, I realized there's another side to it too. Making the player competitive, making him have pride in himself where he didn't have before. Show him how to be aggressive. Teach him. Show him that when he's making a mistake, and show him how to do it right instead of just yelling at him. Not only while you're teaching, while you're doing it, you're promoting him all the time and getting confidence in himself. Make him be answering to honesty where, hey, I made a mistake. Quit blaming my fellow teammate. Try to get him to quit putting it in the newspaper and hanging out your wash. Some of them you get to do it, and some just like to hear themselves or read about themselves. The true Yankee keeps it within himself and doesn't try to air it out in the papers. The ones that I've seen in the past, a few of them I've seen in the past, I'm not too proud that they were in our uniform. No matter what, I don't care what mistakes they make, they shouldn't be telling to a newspaper man. It's keeping the clubhouse, it used to be the old saying. Peachy had a sign there, and he's been there for 50 years. Whatever you do, leave it here. And that's the way it should be. But there's other rewards too. Years later, you run into a player who's played for you. Thank you, Skip. They'll come up to you. Get letters from players saying, I didn't like you when I played for you, but I realized what you did for me. Things like that. Or I didn't understand where you were coming from while you pushed me so hard. Little things like that. And come and say, you know, Skip, boy, I really enjoyed working for you. Then they'll go and tell the guy, well, he was tough, but he was fair. That's what the whole thing's all about. That's what the true love's all about. That's the part you miss when you're not out there. The fanfare, that's fine, that's wonderful. The ovations you get, that's nice. But the winning is really all of it. If there's such a thing as a good loser, why do we keep score? There should no such a thing as a good loser. I don't even like to see a high school coach, a junior high school coach, or a grammar school coach saying losing is good. No, be a hard loser, but be a smart loser. Capitalize the next day on the mistakes you made and come back tougher and stronger. Don't be a quitter. The world's full of quitters. If you lose today, come back and say, I'm gonna beat you tomorrow. That's what it's all about. To young kids out there, it's very simple. Your own peers will make you competitors. They will force you to push, not mom and dad. Your own peers will push you. When they push you down, you're going to push back. And that's when you become a competitor. This game is a wonderful game, baseball. And that's what I enjoy about managing, making them competitors.
Death obviously is so sudden, and it hits you really hard when someone that's had an impact on your life. And Billy did influence my life in a lot of different ways. So I just sat down, and right away, you know, the good times came back. Everyone likes to harp on the negative when you talk about Billy Martin, but like I said, you know, to a lot of the media, I mean, you know, Billy was no angel, but there was a lot of good in Billy Martin, and the people that he touched, you know, he really left an impression. And for me in particular, I'll never forget what he meant in my early life. As I grew older in my profession, I owed a lot to where I am right now as a ball player. You know, some people might not agree, but even as a human being in some ways off the field, in what he taught me.
A couple of days later, I couldn't believe it. You know, I started hearing people saying, well, you know, the guy was a violent guy, and he was this and he was that, and you'd think that he would die that way. And I started thinking about how sick people can think, the things to say, you know. But they didn't know him like I knew him, so I knew better, you know. But you know, I was shocked. I was hurt. I mean, I was really hurt, and I think Stephanie felt it a lot too, because I mean, she just broke up and, you know, almost went to pieces. And but you know, I'll miss him.
2 days, 3 days before the accident, the fateful day, he came down here to read the night before Christmas to 2,000 underprivileged kids. We had a concert at the hall, big, with the symphony orchestra. And everybody wondered. They wanted Billy Martin reading, you know, the night before Christmas. He brought the house down. He was tremendous. And that's the way I remember him, and that's the way I always want to remember him. Sitting there singing carols with me to those kids and the rest of the people, and sitting there reading the night before Christmas to 2,000 kids that were going to have no Christmas. And they went crazy over it.
Billy could have $10 in his pocket, and if you needed a few bucks, he'd give you all 10. He just was very good-hearted. He'd do anything for you. I think it's been proven. Some of the fellas he's had as coaches in his career as a manager, he's brought Art Fowler back. Lee Wall was another guy. Clete Boyer. You know, people that you wouldn't think that, you know, he would remember them, but he didn't remember. He didn't forget his friends, and He was just a very loyal and very soft-hearted guy also. But like you said, he could be tough too.
I was at my condominium, and we was serving dinner, Christmas dinner, and my brother or somebody came by and he goes, "Oh, Billy had an accident and blah, 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 Billy died." And we goes, "Nah, you just hearing stuff." And then it was a big thing because, you know, the death that died, it was my birthday, so it was my birthday, and then you goes, "Ah, no, this didn't happen." Then it came on the news, and you go, "Wow." And to me, it was just a shock to me. And then I always said, "Oh, he left on my birthday." So it was to me, it was a hard feeling. I felt that a great man had left the game of baseball, and you know, we're gonna miss it. Yeah, that was the baseball night. It was a big feeling to me. I didn't, you know, I cared for Billy too much, and to see him go like that, it was a heartbreaker.
Like I've said before, and I'll always say it, I may not have been the greatest Yankee that ever played, but I am the proudest. And I believe that, and I mean it. And I teach that pride in other ball clubs, although I don't use the word Yankee. I install it, and it works. It works. You got to give of yourself. And it's not like a light switch turning on and off. You got to push, push, push. Take nothing for granted. Force everybody to worry about what you're going to do next. It's managing.
He was about 6 men in one. He was like Caesar. He was like General Patton. He was a gunfighter. You know, he was coach. He's the greatest baseball person for all parts of the game. We all are qualified in one area, but he was qualified as an expert really in every area of baseball. Fielding, hitting, catching, pitching. He was just, Billy was a born leader.
I imagine the proudest moment of his life was probably when they retired his number up there. I mean, it meant so much to him.
I remember how happy and proud he was to finally bring a championship back to New York City. The fans, that was his goal. Everyone that was around Billy at the time knew that he wanted to bring the Yankees back to what they were when he played.
And I kept asking, "Billy, you gonna come back one more time?" And people go, "Billy coming back," you know. "Oh no, I'm through." I'm through. But if he need me, you know, you always put it, if the team need me, I'll be there. And that was him. He was a diehard. He was a diehard Yankee too. Great baseball man, but a diehard Yankee. That was his heart and soul.